Welcome back, everyone. Today we sort of have a 2-for-1 review for you today because we're covering both of these weapon lights from Sig. As far as I know, these are their newest weapon lights, and these are the Foxtrot MSR weapon lights. So essentially they are Scout compatible weapon lights that come with a ton of interesting stuff. So this one here is the larger one. It's going to have a larger battery and a slightly longer runtime. However, the output of both of these is exactly the same. So right up front, they are 1350 lumen and 33,000 candela. So compared to competitive options on the market, it's kind of in between in terms of candela. There's definitely some higher candela and some lower candela, but in terms of lumens for lights of this size, it's right near the top of the list, if you will. So obviously after the sun goes down, we're going to show you some beam comparisons with a couple lights. We're going to show you with this one here, which is the Streamlight ProTac Pro, and this one here's a 1000 lumen 50,000 candela light. And then of course we're going to show you with the Streamlight TLR1. This one here is 20,000 candela 1000 lumens. So we're going to kind of give you something that's a little bit brighter, something that's a little bit not as bright in terms of intensity. And I wanted to use the TLR1 HL because it's so popular. It's a good reference point for a lot of you guys out there, because I know a ton of people watching this already have that light. So you'll see sort of how it compares. But these lights are modular and they do come with a ton of stuff. It comes with a tape switch that you guys can see here. I have not had any issues at all with this tape switch, which is very rare for me to say. However, I know if I kept using it, eventually I will. You know my war on tape switches here on the channel. I just don't like them unless you have to. However, if you guys remember my recent cloud defensive video where we had the tape switch fail, Sig actually designed the switch in a way that it wouldn't fail the way the cloud did. So the cloud, if you guys remember, essentially the switch itself, the wire was underneath the mount, and that's what caused it through fraying to eventually fail. Well, the way this one goes in, it doesn't actually interfere or interface with the 1913 mount. So smart on them for that. And the actual cap there is O-ring sealed that it goes into. Now they do attach via tension only, but it's a good bit. So if you wanted to actually just pull it off, you can, but you have to pull pretty hard. So it's not accidentally going to do it. However, if you had your wire snag on something, it's certainly possible. However, the good news on that is that, of course, it still has a clicky tail cap as well. You get both. In this one here, where your actual port goes in, you can seal up as well. So that way it is water submergible, and we have done that with these. And with that tail cap, if you just press down and don't click all the way through, you're going to have your momentary on, or you can click for your constant on. Additionally, it does come with 2 different mounts. Now, these are Scout mount compatible, so any of the Surefire Scout mounts that are out there on the market will work with this. However, it does come with a 1913 mount that we have here, and then it also comes with an M-LOK mount that we have here. You can reverse the orientation of the light on the mounts either way if you want to. So that way, for example, on this one, if you wanted to mount it up in your 1913 rail on the top of your AR-15, you could do it like this, or you could just turn it around and mount it on the right side of the rail. The same is true with the M-LOK. It is reversible. Now, essentially, the light body itself is a 2-piece system. We have our head here, which comes off like so. Then we do have well lubricated threads. Again, that's something a lot of manufacturers don't do. Additionally, we do have an O-ring seal on there. Like we talked about, the big difference is just going to be the battery and the runtime. So this one here is going to be an 18650 battery that does have a USB-C rechargeable port on there. And that basically is the overview. The bodies themselves of the lights are made out of 6061. We're going to do a bunch of drops here and then come back and discuss how it did. As y'all just saw, we chose to use the larger light because this one here is actually going to have more force when it hits versus the smaller counterpart, and it did just fine. We have some scuffs around here, and one thing I should mention as well is that it is a smart design the way they shrouded this with that aluminum. So that way, if you go to press on your actual clicky button here, you really have to be on the button rather than just pushing down, if that makes sense, because those ears do shroud it quite well. Of course, we put it underwater as well. It did totally fine. So pretty durable in terms of that type of testing. Now with that, Let's wait for the sun to go down and do the beam comparisons with these different lights and see how the output compares between the different options. We have the camera set to manual. One thing I recommend, particularly if you guys are watching on a PC or computer, turn your screen brightness up all the way. That will make it as close to what I see out here as possible. And basically that right there is the output from the Streamlight TLR1HL. So 1,000 lumens, roughly 20,000 candela. You get an idea there of a nice balanced beam pattern. The spot there where the wood fence meets the iron fence, about 30 meters away. Trees back there, 35 to 50, depending on the actual tree. And you guys can get an idea there of that beam pattern. Now, for comparison's sake, here is the Sig Foxtrot MSR light. Tighter hotspot for sure, which accounts for the increase in candela. Still has pretty good spill though, as you guys can see. One thing that I'll tell you right there is that edge that is right where the wood and iron fence meet. There's a little bit of spill beyond that. It's probably hard for the camera to pick it up, but it is there. You just know that. But again, pretty intense there in that hotspot. And again, just side-by-side comparison, Streamlight TLR1HL and the Sig over here on the left. Now we have the output of that Streamlight rail mount, the 50,000 candela light, but again, 1,000 lumens. And you can see pretty tight hotspot there, even tighter than what we were seeing there with the Sig, which makes sense given the data. And then comparison, that is the Sig. It has a wider spill for sure. And again, this is the Streamlight. Comparison, Streamlight there on the right, Sig here on your left. If I put them side by side, you can probably get a pretty good idea of the difference in terms of the hotspot, although that Streamlight seems to be washing out a little bit there on camera. Streamlight definitely is a little bit more intense, but we're about to see how much more intense when we go out at distance. Once again, the camera is set on manual. As you can see out there in the sky, we have some pretty good illumination tonight. We're about 4 days away from a full moon, so we have plenty of lume coming from the moon. My property, where I'm on now, I'm about 10 yards back across the lake, shore to shore. At this angle is about 110 yards. And then about 10 yards back, there's a fishing shack we're going to show you here in a second. So the total distance that we're going to be looking at is roughly 130 yards, so pretty far for a weapon light. That right there is the output from the Streamlight TLR1HL. And if I zoom in there, that is closer to what I see with my human eye than the camera when it's all the way backed out. Like, it's very, very close to what I can actually perceive in terms of what you guys are actually seeing right now. So we'll back it out there, but you can see if somebody was standing out there, easily identifiable. Whereas if you turn the light off, there's no way you would know that. And in comparison, that is the Sig Sauer Foxtrot MSR light. So much more intense, as you guys can see. And if we zoom in there, like if somebody was standing out there, you'd be able to identify the color of their clothes, what they're holding, or if they're holding something in their hand, things like that. So much more detail that you're getting there. And again, just for comparison, that is the Streamlight TLR1HL, and that is your Sig Sauer Foxtrot MSR. Before we break out the Streamlight rail mount, one thing to note is that obviously there's a Christmas tree out there because this is the time of the year, and typically that would present somewhat of a photonic barrier, but at some point in terms of candela, you get to the point where it simply doesn't matter, and that's kind of where we're at with both of these lights. It just doesn't matter. There's not anything to overcome with that Christmas tree light being out there, and we're just going to go ahead and turn that Streamlight on. Get a good idea of the beam pattern. Note there we do have that little bush on my property, and even when oriented on the shack itself, the bush is pretty well lit up, so you do get some situational awareness of it. And we're just going to zoom in there, and that is what you see there with the Streamlight. So again, plenty, I think I can zoom a little more. I can. So plenty of information coming off that light. Again, about 130 yards distance. And just for comparison, there is the Sig. Turn that off, and there is the Streamlight. The Streamlight does have a touch more information, if you will, and that is coming from the slight increase in candela. Now we're looking at the Sig. And again, the Streamlight, we'll back them out here and let you guys get a look at sort of how they compare overall. So here, again, is going to be the Sig. You'll see that entire bush there illuminated on your screen with the Sig, so you're getting a little bit more flood for sure, a little bit more situational awareness if you are in an open space. And again, there is the Streamlight. You can see that edge is right there on the bush on your camera on the lower right portion of the screen. Put them up there in the trees, let you guys see that. So this is the Sig here on the right, Streamlight here on your left. The hotspot's a little bit more intense for sure with the Streamlight, which accounts for that 20,000, roughly 17,000, I should say, difference in terms of candela. Now that y'all have seen the comparison, a few things to talk about before we close the video out. And before we do that, we do need to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is the good folks over at Brownells. I would imagine they probably have these in stock right now if you guys are watching this video, but they also have a ton of other stuff over there: ammunition, optics, firearms themselves, as well as probably the best selection of gunsmithing supplies out there on the internet. So big thanks to Brownells for sponsoring the video. Full disclosure, Sig did send these out to me for the review. They're not paying me anything. They don't get to see this video first, etc. So just with all of that out of the way, let's talk cost, right? So these ones here are going to MSRP. This one is $189. This one here, MSRP's at $199. Real world street pricing, both of them, the best deals that I've found around them are somewhere in the $140 to $150 range. And in terms of a value proposition, I think it's honestly pretty good. If you compare it, let's say, to this guy here, this guy, if you want the same package in terms of things that it comes with. Speaking of that, one thing I didn't mention, it actually comes with 2 batteries. Both of them come with 2 batteries. So that way, if you are taking like a night training course or something like that, you can hot swap them and keep them charged all night long. So I do think that is a good thing. However, if you get the model that of the Streamlight here that comes with the tape switch and all the fancy accoutrement that this one comes with, they're pretty close in terms of price point. And then of course, if you look at like the Surefire series, that's going to be comparable in terms of output. There really isn't one, because Surefire makes their Scout series with their dual cell, for example, and that one there would be, 1,000 lumens, but like I think it's like 1,500-ish candela, somewhere around there. And then of course they make their Turbo series, which is, crazy amounts of candela, really, really high, 95,000 and 100,000 candela respectively. So this one kind of is falling right in the middle. And I know there's a lot of people that are both candela curious as well as candela cautious, if that makes sense. And I think for a lot of people, that 33,000 candela number is going to be a pretty good sweet spot. Sorry for that jump cut in the editing. We had a helicopter flying by and it became insanely loud, so we had to stop and come back. But it has flown away now and we can continue on. What I was attempting to say is that I do think the output of these lights is going to be attractive to a lot of people. 33,000 candela is enough to do most jobs that you're going to want to do with a weapon light, for sure, as you guys just saw. And of course, the situational awareness that you get from the 1,350 lumens is also attractive. And when you pair it with everything that you get the 2 batteries, the tape switch, the ability to not run a tape switch if you don't want to, which I personally like. I know some of you guys don't. And you get the durability that you guys have seen here. Both of these lights got beat up pretty bad and they did just fine. I didn't mention it so far, but we have well over 1,000 rounds through different rifles with these on there. Obviously 0 issues, no flickering, no nothing like that. So at this point, if it is something that you are interested in terms of the output, price point, all of those sorts of things, the feature set, then I would definitely recommend it. And I suppose with that, one last thing to talk about here, tape switch operation. I didn't talk about that earlier. I just saw it and it reminded me. So with the tape switch here, as you guys can see, you can only get momentary. So there's no constant option with the tape switch. I personally do like that. If you want to, or you need to switch over into constant, you can just switch over and use the actual button there on the side of the light itself. And yeah, with that, I think that's pretty much it. If you guys aren't following me on all my major social media platforms that you see here on your screen, I recommend you fix that real quick, especially Twitter, Truth. Those are the kind of places that I can post things that I can't post here on YouTube, as well as Meta platforms. Additionally, if you like this video and you're not subscribed, you can rectify that by subscribing. Additionally, if you have subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and you're not seeing 2 to 4 videos a week here on the channel, you're being censored by an algorithm because I am putting them out pretty much religiously. So the easy way around that is to sign up for the email at the website here on your screen. That will get you put on both lists, both the monthly email that goes out once a month that has all the content that I've put up since the previous month's email. Additionally, on the Daily Deals email as well. And if you want to opt out of either, you can, but initially you will be put on both. We've recently changed that here on the channel, so just know that. But the Daily Deals email goes out every day. It has 8 of the best deals that we find around the internet. If the item, whatever it is, ammunition, lights, guns, optics, etc., is in the email on that day, I have verified that it's the cheapest anywhere on the internet that I know of. So that way, it saves you guys some time, but also saves you some money because I've already done the price comparisons for you. Additionally, we have an SMS list as well. Typically, it is the best deal that we find around the internet that day, or it's a new video dropping. Either way, it goes straight from me into your SMS text box. So you can sign up for that here at the website on your screen. And with that, that's all I have for you. Let me know what you think about the lights down below in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video.